It was supposed to be a normal day in the heart of the human war effort. Humanity had been fighting the Zeracon Empire for nearly 2 decades, ever since the aliens first arrived and began attacking human colonies. The war was brutal, and no matter how hard humanity tried, it seemed like the alien empire's power was just too much. They had better weapons, more ships, and a vast army that seemed unstoppable. Captain Jacques Corbin, a battle-hardened officer of the United Earth Fleet, sat at his desk on the USS Valiant, staring at the endless reports of human casualties, damaged fleets, and failed peace talks. His mind was clouded with fatigue, and his thoughts kept drifting to the families of the fallen soldiers. Humanity was losing. We were running out of time and resources. The Council on Earth had been debating how to respond for weeks now. Would they surrender? Would they fight to the bitter end? No one knew. Then something completely unexpected happened. It began with a simple, encrypted message that popped up on every screen across human space. At first, it seemed like another threat from the Zeracons. But when the message decoded, the entire galaxy froze. The message was short, but the words it carried were world-shattering. If you want peace, you must marry me. The words were from Queen Zelenara, the ruler of the Zeracon Empire, the powerful alien who had led the invasion of humanity's colonies. The enemy they had feared and fought against for so long? Captain Corbin blinked, unsure if he was seeing things clearly. His officers around him stared at their screens, equally shocked. The room fell silent. The entire fleet and the people back on Earth had no idea what to make of the bizarre communication. "This is a joke, right?" someone muttered. "Is this some kind of threat?" another officer asked. Corbin's mind raced. What kind of twisted game was this? How could a marriage proposal be part of the equation in this brutal war? The message made no sense. After years of fighting, humanity had now been presented with an offer marriage? The idea was laughable, yet the source was no joke. Queen Zelenara was not someone to be underestimated. The fleet's communication officer quickly worked to verify the authenticity of the message. It was legitimate. Queen Zelenara herself had sent it. Corbin's thoughts spun as the magnitude of the situation hit him. If this was true, the stakes had just changed entirely. The war for humanity's survival had taken an unexpected and strange turn. Minutes passed, but to Corbin, it felt like hours. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. What are we supposed to do with this? He thought. How could we even respond to something so absurd? Back on Earth, leaders were already scrambling. The United Earth Council had an emergency meeting called within minutes of receiving the message. Top diplomats, generals, and strategists convened to discuss this proposal from the alien queen. Their meeting quickly became a storm of confusion. Is she mocking us? One council member asked. It could be a trap, said another, clearly agitated. She might be trying to humiliate us, make us look weak. But what if she's serious? A third person interjected. What if this is a genuine offer for peace? If we reject it, we might be throwing away the one chance we have. Captain Corbin was summoned to Earth for a meeting with the Council. His reputation as one of humanity's finest tacticians made him the ideal person to navigate this strange situation. Despite his doubts, he knew he had a responsibility to represent humanity's interests. Arriving on Earth's capital, Corbin was escorted to the Grand Council Hall. As he entered the room, the faces of human leaders were filled with frustration, confusion, and even fear. They were grappling with the implications of the Zeracon Queen's offer. Captain Corbin, began Council President Lisa Harris, we need you to lead a diplomatic mission. We can't let this message go unanswered. We need to find out what she means by marriage. Is it some kind of political strategy? Is she trying to weaken us? Corbin nodded, though he felt a sense of unease growing in his chest. He had never seen the council in such disarray. I'll do what I can, President Harris, he said, his voice steady. But I still don't understand why she would suggest something like this. The council did not have answers, but they gave Corbin the green light. It was decided that he would be the one to lead a diplomatic delegation to the Zeracon empires. Capital. The mission was clear. Find out if Queen Zelenara was serious about the proposal. If she was, humanity needed to understand why and what it would mean for the future of the war. The next few days were filled with preparations. The USS Valiant was fitted with advanced communication gear to allow direct contact with Zeracon ships. Corbin's team, a group of skilled diplomats and translators, was briefed on everything they could learn about the Zeracon's culture. Still, nothing seemed to prepare them for the meeting that awaited. The journey to the Zeracon capital was swift, but every second felt like an eternity. The weight of the mission was pressing on Corbin. The fate of humanity might depend on what they would discover. And then there was the question that haunted him. Why marry me? Why would the Zeracon Queen make such an offer? What did she expect to gain from it? Finally, the fleet arrived in orbit around the Zeracon homeworld. It was a large, cold planet, surrounded by an impressive fleet of alien warships. Their presence was intimidating, but Corbin had no choice but to face it. The stakes were too high to back out now. He stood in front of the holocommunicator, awaiting the moment that would change everything. The screen flickered, and suddenly the image of Queen Zelenara appeared. She was taller than any human, with radiant green skin, sharp facial features, and golden eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen. Her voice was calm, but it held a power that sent a chill down Corbin's spine.
Captain Corbin?
She said, her voice smooth and unyielding. I trust you received my message. Yes, Your Majesty, Corbin replied, trying to maintain his composure. But we don't understand why you would propose something like ... marriage. The Queen smiled, a cold, calculating smile that suggested she knew something he didn't. See, Captain, peace between our people cannot be achieved through war alone. The Zeracons have fought countless wars, but none have resulted in lasting peace. Our strength lies in unity, and there is no stronger bond than marriage. Corbin's mind raced, trying to process what she was saying. You want ... a union between us? He asked, stunned. Exactly, she said. Your people are strong, resilient. We admire your ability to fight for survival. In this galaxy, that is a rare trait. Through marriage, we can unite our peoples and put an end to this war. Your people will no longer be under threat. As the Queen spoke, it became clear that this wasn't some twisted game. She was serious, and in her eyes, this marriage wasn't just about peace, it was about survival for both species. Corbin's heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future. We will consider your proposal, Corbin said, his voice steady. But there are many questions that still need to be answered. The Queen nodded, her golden eyes gleaming. Of course, Captain. I will answer all your questions. In time, we will discuss the details. But understand this, if you want peace, you must marry me. The connection ended, and Corbin sat in stunned silence. He had just received an impossible offer from the most dangerous enemy humanity had ever faced. The war was far from over, but now humanity was presented with a new kind of battle, a battle for peace, and a battle for survival that no one could have predicted. Captain Jacques Corbin sat in his quarters on the USS Valiant, staring at the screen in front of him. The face of Queen Zelenara, the Zeracon ruler, still lingered in his mind. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Peace, you must marry me. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. And now, it was time to figure out what this strange offer truly meant. It had been 3 days since he and his crew arrived in orbit, around the Zeracon homeworld. They were in the midst of a delicate mission, and Corbin's team was working around the clock. They had to understand what Queen Zelenara really wanted. Was it a trap? Is this some kind of manipulation, a way for the Zeracons to destroy humanity from within? Or was it a genuine opportunity for peace? Back on Earth, the United Earth Council was in chaos. Some saw the marriage proposal as a lifeline, while others feared it would be the end of humanity. But the message was clear. If they didn't respond, the Zeracons might escalate their attacks, and the war would continue. Corbin knew that the future of humanity rested in his hands. As the captain leaned forward, reviewing the mission's latest reports, his first officer, Lieutenant Maria Vega, entered his room. She was a sharp officer, and her concern was clear. On her face, Captain had been asked to meet with the Queen. She wants to discuss the terms of the proposal in person, Vega said, her tone cautious. We're getting closer to understanding what's at stake here. But are we sure we want to meet with her? Corbin turned toward her, his expression serious. I don't know, Maria, but right now, it's the only option we have. The Council's not going to be happy, but we need answers. The war's been dragging on for too long. If there's even a chance that this proposal could stop the fighting, we have to explore it. Vega nodded, though her hesitation remained. I just don't trust them. The Zaracons have been ruthless. One moment they're offering peace, and the next, they're wiping out entire colonies. I don't know if we can trust anything they say. I understand your concern, Corbin replied. But we can't ignore the possibility that this might be our only chance to end the war. If the Queen is genuine, then we need to approach this carefully. We don't want to make enemies out of potential allies. Maria hesitated for a moment before speaking again. And what about you, Captain? How do you feel about this marriage proposal? Is it just business? Or... She trailed off, knowing she was treading into personal territory. Corbin exhaled slowly. I don't know what to think about it, Maria, but I have to focus on the mission. There's no room for personal feelings in a situation like this. The fate of humanity is on the line. Whatever happens, I have to make the right call. Maria gave him a respectful nod before turning to leave. Corbin sat alone in his quarters for a while longer, lost in thought. Could he really trust this alien? Queen? Her species had been humanity's enemies for so long, and now she was offering peace. It didn't add up. But Corbin knew that war had a way of changing people. Maybe, just maybe, the Zaracons were tired of fighting. The next day, Corbin and his team were prepared for their journey to the Zaracon capital. The meeting was scheduled in a grand palace on the planet's surface. The invitation came through a secure channel, and all communication was conducted under strict observation. There were no guarantees. Corbin knew the Queen would be expecting him, but he still had no idea what to expect from her. The Valiant descended into the atmosphere of the alien world, its engines humming as they made their way toward the palace. As they neared their destination, Corbin couldn't shake the feeling of tension in the air. This was unlike any diplomatic mission he had ever been on. If something went wrong, the consequences could be catastrophic. The palace was vast, stretching high into the sky with tall spires that reflected the glow of the alien sun. It was both beautiful and intimidating, a symbol of the Zaracon Empire's power. As the ship landed, Corbin and his team exited, walking toward the grand entrance. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Inside, they were met by a group of Zaracon soldiers, their golden armor gleaming in the dim light of the palace.
Right.
They led Corbin and his team through the corridors, past strange, intricate alien designs that decorated the walls. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber. The room was filled with a strange, greenish glow. And at the far end stood the Zaracon Queen herself. Queen Zelenara stood tall, her skin a deep shade of green, her eyes glowing gold. She was regal and powerful, a sight to behold. Despite her beauty, there was an undeniable coldness to her presence. She radiated authority, and Corbin could feel her gaze on him as he entered the room. Captain Corbin, the Queen's voice rang out. I am pleased to finally meet you in person. Corbin stepped forward, his face expressionless.
Your Majesty,
He said with a nod. I'm here to discuss your proposal. The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. You must have many questions. Please, sit back. We have much to discuss. Corbin and his team took their seats at a large table. The Queen remained standing, her posture proud and imposing. For a moment, there was an awkward silence, as if both sides were trying to figure out the best way to begin. I'm sure you have doubts about my intentions, the Queen began, her voice smooth but firm. And I understand why. Zaracons have been at war with humanity for so long. Trust is hard to come by. Let me explain. She paced slowly, her steps echoing through the room. My empire is dying. We have fought countless wars, and we have lost much. Our resources are depleted, and our people are divided. The rebels seek to overthrow me, and without peace, my empire will collapse. I know you humans are strong. You have shown that time and time again. If what we have lost: unity, determination, and survival instincts. Corbin listened carefully. This was the first time he had heard the Zarakans speak so openly about their struggles. For years, they had been the aggressors, taking territory and annihilating human colonies. Now, it seemed, they were the ones desperate for peace. The Queen continued. The marriage I proposed is not just about joining our two peoples. It is about ensuring that our empires survive. Through this union, we will create a lasting bond. I will offer you the protection of my forces, and in return, your people will become allies of the Zarakan Empire. We will stand together against any who threaten us. Corbin's mind raced. The Queen was offering peace, but at a price. The alliance would forever bind humanity to the Zarakans, and humanity's future would be tied to the fate of an empire that had tried to destroy them for so long. Could they trust her? Was this truly a peace offer, or was it a trap designed to break humanity once and for all? What exactly do you mean by marriage? Corbin asked, still cautious. What would this alliance look like in practice? The Queen's golden eyes gleamed as she answered. Marriage in our culture is not just a personal bond. It is the union of two forces, two powers. It is the joining of our people in a shared future. You will be my partner, Captain Corbin. Together, we will lead the Zarakan Empire and humanity into a new era. We'll share the strength of both our civilizations. Together, we will rebuild. Corbin could hardly believe what he was hearing. The stakes were higher than ever before. To accept this proposal meant an irreversible change for humanity. Was he willing to tie humanity's future to the Zarakan Empire? And could he really trust the Queen's words? The silence in the room was thick with uncertainty. Corbin glanced at his team. They too were uncertain, unsure of what to say. Next, the Queen, sensing their hesitation, added, I know this is not an easy decision, but the alternative is war, and I promise you, Captain, if we do not join forces, both of our empires will be destroyed. The rebels within my empire are ruthless. They will stop at nothing to see my rule end. They will continue the war with your people if we fail to act. Corbin finally spoke. We will consider your offer, Your Majesty, but we need more time. We need to consult with our leaders and determine our next steps. The Queen nodded. Of course, Captain. But know this, time is running out. The rebels are closing in, and peace may slip away before you can make your decision. As Corbin and his team left the palace, the weight of the decision hung heavily. On his shoulders, the Zarakans were desperate. But did that mean peace was truly possible, or was it a trap waiting to ensnare humanity? Captain Jacques Corbin sat at the head of the table in the briefing room aboard the Valiant. His team, including Lieutenant Maria Vega, was gathered around, their faces tense. The mission had taken an unexpected turn, and now humanity was at a crossroads. The Zarakan Queen's offer to marry him and form an alliance was a wild proposal, but the reality was undeniable. The war had dragged on for too long. The stakes were higher than ever. The question was simple, yet complicated. Should they accept the Queen's offer or reject it? Corbin rubbed his temples, trying to focus. He had spent hours since the meeting with Queen Zelenara, thinking about the decision he had to make. Could he trust her? Could humanity trust the Zarakan Empire, an empire that had wiped out entire colonies in their invasion? Was this truly an opportunity for peace, or was it just another ploy for control? Captain, Maria's voice broke through his thoughts. She had been pacing the room, her arms crossed. I've been running through every possible scenario, and I keep coming back to the same thing. This could be a trap. We're talking about an empire that has no hesitation when it comes to conquering others. We can't ignore that. Corbin nodded. He understood her concerns. He felt the same way. But the Queen had made it clear, if they didn't act soon, the war would continue. Humanity could lose everything. I know, Maria. I know. Corbin said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. But what if this is our only chance? What if accepting her proposal is the only way to end the war without more bloodshed? Maria stopped pacing and turned to face him. And what if it's not? What if we end up bound to an empire that will exploit us, use us for their own gain? You're talking about marriage with an alien queen? That's not something we should take lightly, Captain. We need to be sure. Corbin sighed, running a hand through his hair. The truth was, he wasn't sure. Every part of him screamed to be cautious, to reject the offer and prepare for battle. But another part of him, the part that had seen too much death and destruction in the last few years, whispered that maybe peace was worth the risk. We don't have the luxury of time, Corbin said quietly. The Zeracons are already talking about the rebels in their ranks. Maria, if we don't move quickly, we could find ourselves in the middle of a civil war, with no allies on either side. Maria looked at him, her expression softening. He knew what he was saying. The war was exhausting. They had already lost so much. The thought of more death, more destruction, it was unbearable. The question remained, could they trust the Queen? Could they truly risk everything for peace? We have to think about the bigger picture, Corbin continued. What if this marriage isn't just about us? What if it's about preventing a larger galactic conflict? If we reject her, we could trigger a war that could affect every colony. Every world we have left, we need to make a decision. Maria nodded slowly. I get it. But how do we even begin to approach this? We can't just march into her empire and say yes. There's a lot we don't understand about their culture, politics. We're walking into something that could change the course of human history. Corbin stood up from the table, his mind racing. He'd always prided himself on making tough decisions. But this was different. This wasn't a typical battle, and there was no playbook for a situation like this. The fate of humanity was in his hands, and every choice seemed fraught with danger. I'm going to request more information, Corbin said finally. We'll need to understand what we're really dealing with. I'm going to meet with the Queen again. I'll ask for details about what this marriage would mean. I need to know if we're making a terrible mistake or if we're actually looking at a chance for lasting peace. Maria didn't argue. She knew that Corbin's decision would set the course for humanity's future, and he had to be the one to make it. We'll be right behind you, Captain. Whatever you decide, we'll follow you. The next day, Corbin once again found himself standing before Queen Zelenara in the grand palace of the Zarkon Empire. This time, there was no hesitation in his mind. He had to get answers. He had to know what they were really offering. Queen Zelenara was waiting for him in the same chamber as before. She stood tall, her golden eyes glinting in the dim light. There was a calm, almost serene quality to her presence, but Corbin knew better than to underestimate her. Captain Corbin, the Queen said as he entered, her voice as smooth as ever. I trust you've had time to consider my proposal. Corbin didn't waste time with pleasantries. I have, Your Majesty. But before we go any further, I need to know more about what this marriage would mean for humanity. You've said that. It's not just about peace. You've said it's about survival. But what does that really mean? The Queen's gaze softened, as if she had been expecting the question. She moved to a nearby table and gestured for Corbin to sit. Our empire's at war, Captain. It's not just with your people. There are other factions, other rebel groups within my own empire, and they are growing stronger every day. If we continue fighting your people, we risk losing everything. The rebels will overtake us, and we will all fall into chaos. Corbin leaned forward, listening intently. So this marriage, this alliance, what exactly are you asking for? Queen. Zelenara's expression grew serious. I am offering you peace, but it is more than that. I am offering you an alliance, a union of power. We will combine our forces, our technology, and our resources. Together, we will defend each other. Together, we will face the rebels and any other threats that come our way. This is not about domination, Captain. It is about mutual survival. Corbin took a deep breath. It sounded plausible. It sounded reasonable. But something still didn't sit right. And what do you want from humanity in exchange? What's the cost of this peace? Queen Zelenara didn't hesitate. Loyalty. Your people will become part of our empire. But in return, you will gain protection, resources, and the strength of our combined forces. We will stand together, and we will ensure that no one can threaten either of us. We will share everything: our knowledge, our technology, our military power. Corbin processed her words carefully. On the surface, it seemed like an incredible offer. An alliance with one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy could protect humanity from its enemies. But there was still a part of him that wondered what the Queen was hiding. What wasn't she telling him? What about the people of Earth? Corbin asked. What do they think of this proposal? How will they feel about joining with an empire that has attacked us for so long? The Queen's golden eyes narrowed. Your people are strong, Captain. They have earned my respect. But the truth is, Earth's power is limited. Without this alliance, your people will not survive the coming storm. This is your only chance to ensure the future of humanity. Corbin felt the weight of her words. He had seen the destruction, the devastation that the war had caused. He knew that the human colonies were struggling, and Earth itself was on the brink of collapse. But was this the right choice? Was he truly ready to give humanity's future to the Zeracons? I need time to consider, Corbin said, standing up. This is a decision that will affect not just me, but all of humanity. I will bring your offer back to Earth, and we will discuss it with our leaders. Queen Zelenara regarded him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Of course, Captain, but remember, time is not on your side. The rebels are already gathering, and the longer you wait, the more difficult it will become to prevent a full-scale war. Corbin nodded grimly. He knew that every second counted. The clock was ticking, and he had no idea how this would end. But one thing was clear: the fate of humanity was in his hands. The decision he would make could change everything. As Corbin left the palace, he knew there was no easy answer. The Queen's proposal was tempting: peace, protection, survival. But at what cost? Could humanity afford to trust the Zeracons? Or would this be the beginning of a new kind of war, one that no one could predict? Corbin's heart weighed heavy, with the knowledge that he would soon have to make a choice, one that could decide the future of all mankind. The weight of Captain Jacques Corbin's decision hung heavily in the air, pressing on him like an invisible storm. For days, he had been locked in deep thought, running every possible scenario through his mind. The Zeracon Queen, Zelenara, had made her offer clear: peace, protection, and an alliance. But what would accepting that alliance mean for humanity? What would be the true cost of such a marriage? And what was the price of rejecting her? The USS Valiant drifted quietly in orbit, waiting for orders. Inside, Corbin sat at his desk in his quarters, staring out at the vastness of space. The stars shimmered softly in the distance, a constant reminder of the galaxy's vastness and its dangers. Captain, a voice broke his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Maria Vega, his first officer and close confidant. She stood in the doorway, her face etched with concern. The Earth Council is waiting for your response. They've already delayed once, but they're demanding a decision. What do we tell them? Corbin stood up, pacing slowly. Tell them to wait a little longer, Maria. I still don't have the answers I need. Maria crossed the room, her boots clicking softly against the floor. Captain, I know how hard this is. We've all seen the toll this war has taken on humanity. The rebellion within the Zeracon Empire. If we don't act soon, it could turn into something worse. She hesitated before adding, but I can't shake the feeling that this marriage proposal is a trap. It's too convenient. They've attacked us for years, and now, suddenly, they want peace? Corbin stopped, his eyes meeting. Hers? I don't know if it's a trap, Maria. But I do know that this war has already cost us so much. Earth's resources are drained. Our colonies are in disarray. If the Zeracons are offering peace, we have to at least consider it. If we turn them down, we risk making an enemy of an entire empire. But if we accept, we risk being tied to an empire that might be just as dangerous as the one we're already fighting. Maria took a step closer, her expression softening. So what now? What's the plan? Corbin ran a hand through his hair. We need to know what we're getting into. I'm going to meet with Queen Zelenara again. We need more information. I need to know exactly what she wants from humanity, what the cost of this peace really is. Maria nodded. I'll be there with you, Captain. Whatever happens, we stand together. Corbin gave her a grateful look. I appreciate that, Maria, but this is a decision I have to make. I'll be the one to talk to her. I'll need your team to prepare for whatever might come next, but don't take any action without my orders. A few days later, Corbin found himself once again standing before Queen Zelenara in the grand, glowing palace of the Zarakans. The air inside was thick with tension, though the queen herself maintained an air of calm, as always. She sat on her ornate throne, looking down at him with a serene, almost unreadable expression. Captain Corbin, the queen said as he entered, her voice smooth but firm. I trust you've had enough time to think over my proposal. Corbin stood tall before her, trying to hide the nervousness that tugged at the edges of his thoughts. He was walking into unknown territory. Every part of him screamed for caution. Yet he knew the Zarakans were growing desperate. Their internal rebellion, their fight for control, it was all coming to a head. But was that enough of a reason to trust them, to ally with them? I've had time, Your Majesty, Corbin began, his voice steady. But I need more answers before we can make a decision. You're asking for an alliance, a marriage, an unusual and powerful union. But what exactly does that mean for humanity? What will we give up in exchange for peace? Queen Zelenara regarded him with those piercing golden eyes, as though considering how much she should reveal. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she rose from her throne, her posture dignified and commanding. You ask what humanity will give up, Captain. That is a fair question. She began to pace around him, her words like the steady beat of a drum, each one laced with purpose. What you will give up is not your identity or your freedom. What you will give up is the fear of annihilation. What you will gain is stability, protection, and the strength of our combined forces. Corbin narrowed his eyes. And what about your people, Your Majesty? The Zarakans have been in constant conflict for years. If we join you, what happens when your own empire falls apart? What happens when the rebels take control, the queen's? Gaze hardened for a moment, a flicker of something darker passing through her eyes. The rebels grow stronger every day. They are not united, Captain. They fight for power, for control, but they lack the unity that you and I share. I am the ruler of the Zarakans, and my word is law. With your alliance, we will crush them before they can tear my empire apart. Corbin took a step closer. But what happens after that? What happens once you've crushed the rebels? Will we still be equals, or will humanity be forced into servitude, bowing to your empire? The queen paused, her gaze steady. That depends entirely on you, Captain. If you accept this offer, you will be my equal. We will rule together as partners, leading our two peoples into a new era. You will have the power to influence our decisions, to direct the course of our future. This is not about subjugation. It is about the survival of both our empires. Corbin's mind raced as he processed her words. The queen spoke of partnership. But could he truly believe that? Is it really possible for two civilizations so different to work together as equals? Or was this just a way for the Zarakans to gain an even stronger foothold in the galaxy? And what of Earth? Corbin asked. You say we will be equals, but what will Earth's place be in this new empire? Will we lose our sovereignty? Will we be expected to follow your laws, your way of life? Zelenara smiled faintly. We'll remain free to govern itself, Captain. Your leaders will have the power to make decisions, just as I do. But we will be allies. We will share our resources, our knowledge, and our strength. Together, we will be unstoppable. Corbin took a deep breath, weighing her words. Could he trust her? Was this some grand scheme to pull humanity into the depths of Zarakan control? The uncertainty churned inside him like a storm. But he couldn't ignore the fact that this offer, as risky as it was, might be humanity's best shot at survival. I need more time to think, Corbin said, his voice firm. This decision is too important to rush. The queen nodded. I understand, Captain, but do not take too long. As I said before, time is a luxury we do not have. My enemies grow stronger by the day. Corbin turned and walked toward the door. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Could he really take this step? Was it worth the risk to bind humanity's future to an alien empire, no matter how powerful? As he left the palace, the weight of the universe seemed to press down. On him, every decision had consequences. And the choice before him: accept the offer and change the course of history, or reject it and risk the destruction of everything humanity had worked for, was one that would echo across the stars. Back on the Valiant, Corbin sat alone in his quarters once again. The crew had gathered for the briefing, the council was waiting, and the clock was ticking. His hand hovered over the console as he prepared to send a final communication to Earth. The decision had to be made, and there was no going back once. It was done. Corbin took a deep breath, his mind clear now, though his heart was still heavy. Whatever he chose, he knew that the consequences would be far-reaching. It's not just for him, but for every person on Earth, every human in the colonies, and every soul who would inherit the legacy of his choice. Prepare the message to Earth, Corbin said finally. It's time to make the decision. He stood tall, resolved, knowing that whatever came next, he would face it with the same courage he had shown on the battlefield. The hum of the Valiant's engines was a constant reminder that time was running out. Captain Jacques Corbin sat in his command chair, eyes fixed on the stars outside the bridge's viewports. The vastness of space was both awe-inspiring and suffocating. At once, he had never felt the weight of a decision more than he did now. The fate of humanity was at stake. After his meeting with Queen Zelenara, Corbin had spoken with Earth's council. They had debated endlessly. Some believed that the marriage and alliance were the only way to ensure humanity's survival. Others were fearful that accepting the offer would lead to the extinction of Earth's sovereignty. And then there were those who simply wanted to reject the Zeracon Queen outright, feeling that peace with such a powerful enemy was too dangerous. The risks were high no matter which path they chose. Corbin had taken it all in, weighed every argument, and now the decision had come down to one question. Could humanity truly trust the Zeracons? Captain Corbin, we've received a message from the council. Maria Vega's voice broke through his thoughts, sharp and clear. She entered the bridge, holding a tablet in her hand. They're expecting a response to the Queen's proposal. They want your answer now. Corbin turned toward her, his expression unreadable. I know, Maria. I know. Maria stepped closer. Shh. She could sense the weight pressing on him.
Captain.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I know how hard this decision is for you. I know it feels like we're at a crossroads, but maybe we're missing something. Corbin raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Maria glanced at the other crew members who were all busy with their stations. She lowered her voice, stepping closer to him. We've been focusing too much on what the Queen says, but we haven't talked much about what we want. Peace is important, but so is humanity's future. We need to decide what kind of future we want to build. Do we accept this marriage and live with the consequences, or do we reject the Zarakon's offer and risk everything for freedom? Corbin's jaw clenched as he thought about Maria's words. It's not that simple. We've seen the cost of this war. Earth is on the edge of collapse. The colonies are falling apart. We need allies. The Zeracons are powerful. They could protect us. They could rebuild what we've lost. But he paused. The thought of giving up humanity's independence felt like a loss he wasn't sure he could accept. But what does it cost? What do we give up? How much control would we be handing over to them? Maria sighed softly. I can't say for sure. No one can. But if we don't trust anyone, we end up alone. If the Zeracons are offering an alliance, it might be our only shot at survival. But whatever we decide, Captain, it has to be for the good of humanity, not just for our own survival. Corbin nodded, his mind still a storm of conflicting emotions. He turned back toward the viewports, the stars twinkling coldly against the blackness of space. The universe had always been vast, but now it felt like it was closing in on him. The decision was made. The message to Earth was clear. Corbin had taken a deep breath and pressed the button that would send the final decision to the Earth Council. The Valiant would move forward with the alliance. The crew stood in silence as the orders were given. Corbin's decision was not popular. With everyone, some were relieved, but others were nervous. They had all been through so much, and now this new chapter in humanity's history was beginning. As the ship began to move toward the Zeracon capital, Corbin couldn't help but feel a deep sense of uncertainty. He had made the decision he thought was right, but there was no way to know for sure how it would play out. The Zeracons were not simply allies. They were powerful, enigmatic, and potentially dangerous. The Zeracon capital world glistened. In the distance, a jewel among the stars. The Valiant dropped out of warp speed as it neared the Grand Palace, where Corbin would meet Queen Zelenara again. This time, it wasn't just a formal meeting, it was the beginning of something new. Something unknown. The ship docked at the royal palace, and the crew made their preparations. Corbin walked down the long, ornate corridors of the palace, his boots echoing softly. He was joined by Maria, who walked quietly beside him. They entered the throne room together, and the sight before them took his breath away. Queen Zelenara sat on a throne of crystalline stone, bathed in a soft golden light. Her regal presence was unmistakable. She looked every bit the ruler she claimed to be, and yet there was something about her that made Corbin uneasy. He had agreed to the marriage and alliance, but this was not a simple step. It was a leap into a future that could either bring prosperity or destruction. Captain Corbin, Zelenara greeted, her voice smooth and warm, but with an underlying force. I see that you've made your decision. Corbin stood tall before her, his face set in a determined mask. Yes, Your Majesty. We've decided to accept your offer of peace and alliance. Humanity is ready to join your empire. The Queen's golden eyes shone with a glimmer of approval. She rose from her throne, walking toward him with measured steps. I knew you would see the wisdom in this, Captain. Together, we can build a future where our people thrive. She held out her hand. The marriage will take place soon. It is not only a union of our people, but a symbol of the strength that comes from our cooperation. You will not regret this decision. Corbin nodded, but there was a weight in his chest that wouldn't ease. I hope not, Your Majesty. For the sake of all humanity, I hope we won't. In the following days, the news spread across Earth and its colonies. The Zeracon Empire and humanity were officially allied. The marriage between Captain Corbin and Queen Zelenara would take place in a ceremony that would unite both peoples. In a bond of peace, the Earth Council's reactions were mixed. Some praised the decision, seeing it as the best path for survival. Others were more skeptical, questioning the long-term consequences. But for now, there was a sense of hope, a belief that this alliance could bring an end to the constant warfare that had plagued humanity for so long. The wedding ceremony took place on a grand scale, the likes of which humanity had never seen. The palace was bathed in brilliant lights, and the entire galaxy seemed to be watching. Corbin stood at the altar, his thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He had agreed to this, but the reality of the moment felt overwhelming. Queen Zelenara stood beside him, her regal beauty on full display. Her golden eyes met his, and for a moment, Corbin felt the full weight of the universe resting on their shoulders. This was at the moment where humanity's future would be shaped. The ceremony was both spectacular and surreal. The alien customs were different, but the message was clear. Two civilizations, once enemies, were now united. As Corbin and Zelenara exchanged vows, there was a sense of finality, but also a sense of hope. This was the beginning of something new. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Humanity's new alliance with the Zeracons began to take shape. Earth's resources were replenished, and the colonies received aid. The combined military strength of the Zeracon Empire and humanity made the rebels in the galaxy think twice before attacking. Slowly, a fragile peace began to settle over the war-torn galaxy. But for Corbin, the questions didn't end with the wedding. He couldn't shake the feeling that the Zeracons were not entirely what they seemed. Queen Zelenara had kept her promises so far, but how long would that last? And what did it truly mean for humanity to be part of her empire? The peace they had fought for was not guaranteed to last forever. But as Corbin looked out at the stars, he knew that this new chapter, uncertain as it was humanity's best chance at a future. And no matter the cost, they had to move forward.